Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to another action-packed episode of Mr. J's Big Book of Movies, where my quest is to find the best movies in the land to put into my Big Book of Movies. What does it take to get into the Big Book of Movies? Every Saturday, that's what we're here to find out. It is the month of Halloween, so what we're doing is we're looking at horror-type movies, suspense, type of movies. Today is not a viewer challenge, but is a movie that was requested by a couple of my friends. I've never seen this movie. I really don't have a way to introduce it, so I'm just going to go and say the title, The Cabin in the Woods. The Cabin in the Woods was released April 13th, 2012. And was directed by Drew Goddard. IMDb states that 5 friends go for a break at a remote cabin where they get more than they bargained for, discovering the truth behind the cabin in the woods. Now, that is such a bare minimum of the description of this movie. I don't feel it does any justice in describing the film, but it's definitely one of those movies where you have to see it to understand it. And even at that, after watching the film and going back and checking out the premise, I don't feel it does any justice. Starting at the top of the line, we have the rewatch factor. For this movie, I gave the rewatch factor a 2, which means I'd watch it with the first timer. Other than that, I really don't have any plans on watching this movie a second time. Now, here's the reason: the shock value. Once you see the movie, you know what's going to happen. So that shock value is over. Once you figure out what's really going on, that shock value is over. And you're waiting for the person next to you to catch on to see if they can figure out what's really going on. So because of that, I give the rewatch factor a 2. Sorry about the previous sirens. We're having a little rainstorm here in Cleveland, so I had no way of editing that out, so I apologize to that now. Next in line, we have storyline. Storyline was really difficult for me because there's actually 3 different scores that I want to give it. So the actual storyline is a 4, and that is the screenplay. Like appeasing the gods of the past so that all is well with the world, and countries from around the world are partaking in this task to do so. So that part gets a 4. Now, the execution of the storyline is a 2. You know, I wish there was a little bit of explanation about everybody in the cubes and why the 2 characters got put into the cubes, because it's like, well, what are they going to do? So the execution of it, and Sigourney Weaver coming out of nowhere, and it's like, I feel that the execution only gets a 2. Now, overall, and that's the score that I'm going to give it, is a 3. Adding the 2 together, a 4 and a 2, I feel in the middle, it is a 3. So overall, I'm going to give the storyline a 3. Now, another thing that I have to say about the storyline, I felt it was a giant Scooby-Doo mystery, and I'm going to explain that even more when I get to characters. So, as I said before, with characters, I give 2, and I give the score of a 2, and I feel because it was a giant Scooby-Doo mystery. You know, starting with the main 5, you have the athlete, and he's equivalent to Freddy. You have the slut, and she was equivalent to Daphne. You have the genius, and they were equivalent to Velma. You have the fool, and they were equivalent to Shaggy. And then you have the virgin, and yeah, I know you wanted Velma to be the virgin, but help me out. The Virgin was the main character, and they even said in the movie, if they do or do not die, you know, it's optional. So, killing off a dog, you know what I'm saying? Killing off the Scooby-Doo character is optional. But, I mean, Freddy and Velma are always gone during the mystery. You don't know where they're at. and it is stereotyped that they're out making out. And literally, that's what happens when at least the girl gets killed. Shaggy always says that the ghosts are real, they're really there. And he's the one that figures out that they're actually in a reality TV show. And there's cameras everywhere. But yet, he's the high one, so no one pays him any attention. I didn't feel attached to any of the characters. I liked how everyone dies, and that's just proof that the viewer isn't supposed to get attached to any of the characters. So acting, character-wise, I give it 2. Appearance-wise, and this may come as a surprise, I give this movie a 5. This looked beautiful. You know what I'm saying? All those monsters and the costumes and the makeup and the CGI and all that looked beautiful. This is Academy Award material. But of course, this is a horror movie that came out in the middle of summer, so no one's going to pay attention to it. And that's the part that sucks. So I'm going to put in the effort and say, hey, here's your Academy Award nomination for visual effects. 5 from Mr. J. Finally, we have enjoyment. Enjoyment, I give a 3. Middle of the road. Like I said, once the shock wore off about what's really going on, the movie kind of went downhill. I do not like the way it was wrapped up in the end. But, hey, I'm just one critic on that one. But I really don't know what I would change to increase it. I just feel they chose the wrong character to make it all the way to the end. There is one additional thing that I would like to say. I think it's cool that, Shaggy did not get killed, but you realize that they needed the blood and not the actual bodies. So I think it's kind of cool that Shaggy did make it to the end, only because they needed his blood and not his body. But they could have switched Shaggy's character and Velma's character. Well, those are the 5 categories. Why is that important? Because the 5 categories equal a score, and the score equals a grade. So starting at the top, we have the rewatch factor receiving a 2. We have the storyline receiving a 3. We have the characters receiving a 2. We have the appearance receiving a 5. And we have enjoyment receiving a 3. Overall, the equals a 15, and that 15 equals a C. Yeah, I would say it's just below a B, but they had the wrong characters at the end, But overall, does this movie get into the big book of movies, which is what we're all here to find out? Even though it had a nice shock value, I feel the lack of rewatchability is what's going to keep it from getting in the big book of movies. So it's going to get a denial from us today. Well, that's it. That's all the time we have here today on Mr. J's Big Book of Movies. Don't forget you can pop in every Saturday here on YouTube for new channels. Feel free to listen to my movie review podcast, Eye for an Eye with Mr. J. It comes out every Tuesday and Thursday, and I'm available on Apple Podcast, Google Play, and Stitcher. You can follow me on Twitter at Eye for an Eye, spelled just like my podcast, our Facebook fan page at Eye for Mr. J. You can email me anytime, anywhere, mws_216@yahoo.com. And most importantly, underneath, comment, suggest, subscribe. And as far as I'm concerned, this chapter is now closed.